Hey everybody, I'm Nathan Osmond and welcome back to the studio. We're so excited to have in studio today our friend LeAnn Wheeler from Premier Vascular Solutions. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
We're so glad to have you here. And today we're going to talk about heart disease. This is on the rise. We're seeing it in the news. We're seeing young athletes, younger people struggling with cardiovascular issues and heart disease. And so even today I met a friend who I've known for a long time who's a lot younger than me who has heart disease. It's a real thing, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, it is absolutely exploding. I was at one of our local hospitals the other day, and they're just building a brand new wing of a tower for cardiovascular surgery.
Wow.
Because they need more and more wings of the hospitals to treat the people who are dying of heart disease.
Every 33 seconds somebody dies of heart disease in this country.
That's what the CDC says.
How tragic is that? So we're going to talk today with you about something that has changed your life, literally.
Literally.
And that is changing thousands of lives all over the country. It's nothing that's new, but it's something we've rarely heard about. And it is called EECP, Enhanced External Counterpulsation. Isn't that what it's called?
That's what it's called.
It's a big mouthful, but
it
you know
is a
what?
mouthful.
It's saving lives. And Sandy, Utah is the heart, no pun intended, of where this magic is happening. And we're going to talk about that. But I want to talk about you and this handsome devil right here. His name is Fran, correct?
Yes, my husband's name is Fran.
You guys are raised just outside of Ogden, Utah.
We're local people.
I love it.
Come from farming country. Went to Weber State University for our undergraduate degrees.
That's amazing. That's where my family's from, is Ogden area.
It is.
And we love that part of the country. But your life just about changed. I mean, it did change.
Entirely.
Something happened. Can you tell us what happened?
Well, like everybody else in the world, they say most people don't expect to have heart disease, and then it comes very, very suddenly. And I had just recently been totally tested for different kinds of diseases or problems, because I was having some problems with high blood pressure. And so I saw endocrinologists and cardiologists and had all kinds of tests, and they said, we don't find anything. You don't have a problem.
You got a clean bill of health.
I did. And then we were, that summer, just a couple of months later, we were in the Alps hiking with our son and daughter-in-law.
Wow.
And I started having chest pains, and I thought, well, it's just the altitude. It's just, you know, a little bit of exertion, because I couldn't possibly be having heart disease. And so I kind of just dismissed it. But within a month or two after that, I had just walked in the door from visiting a friend, driven home, and it was like I got hit in the back with a baseball bat. Oh, wow. I have never experienced anything like it before. And I was very sick. I was nauseated. I was sweating. And I knew that I was in big trouble.
Yeah.
And you know how you do your thing, what do I do now? How do I deal with this? And that voice that talks to us just kept saying, get to the hospital. And out of vanity, I called my neighbor, who is a nurse, because I thought, I do not want the ambulance to come with the sirens on.
Yeah.
So I called my neighbor, and she came running over, and she said, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, call the ambulance, but tell them to don't turn the sirens on. And it turned out that I had 95% blocked in one artery and 100% blocked in the other artery.
Wow.
And I remember when they were wheeling me down the hallway, they were running and cutting my clothes off. And I kept thinking the whole time I was in the ambulance before that, I kept thinking, I don't have time for this. I was getting ready for a leadership conference the next night, and I was home alone. So anyway, as they were doing this, I said to the nurse next to me, I said, you think I'm going to die, don't you? And she said, oh, we don't talk like that. We never say that. So I said, well, just in case, please tell my family that I'm thinking about them and I love them. And I was one of the lucky ones. Yeah. Because a lot of people, when they start to have a heart attack, like my mother had a heart attack, and she, for 2 days, she kept thinking, it's indigestion. Yeah. It's just an upset stomach or something. And they stay home and they think about it, and they're not sure. I count myself very lucky that I had no question, because I would have been one of those people sitting there for 2 days.
Yeah.
And what happens meantime is, because your heart has no oxygen, you have heart damage. And so I just, You know, I was very lucky that the EMTs were there within 3 minutes. My cardiologist was on call.
Wow.
And I had no heart damage.
That's incredible. 100% blocked off in 2 arteries. You could have been a goner. You are a lucky one. There's a reason you're still here. And now you're paying it forward, helping people to save their lives, to not only help those that are dealing with cardiovascular issues and heart disease, but also to help prevent it. Why is that important?
It's important to me because we have a family history of heart disease. I have a younger brother who died of heart disease when he was having just a routine angioplasty. That's just when they're going in to put a stent in. I have another younger brother who has 2 stents, and they've told him that he really needs more than they can give him, that his cardiologist said, we're just trying to keep you alive long enough to get more medication. And so I was lucky enough to find a therapy that made a difference for me after many more experiences. In between, after that first heart attack, I had 2 more heart attacks. So I've had 3 heart attacks, 7 stents, and a stent within a stent, and then a bypass heart surgery. And my cardiologist kept saying, we just can't figure out why you're having heart disease. And part of it is that I have a genetic thing called lipoprotein small a, and it's called the sticky cholesterol. So my arteries just clog up really, really quickly. And a lot of people have it. It's an easy test to do, but they don't test very often in the United States. So that's another thing that people can do, is get tested for LPA, just to see if they have that.
So ask your doctor about LPA and how to get tested for it. That's something we just learned here on this show. That's amazing. Well, I tell you, it runs not only in your family, but it runs in the Osmond family as well. My father's had a heart attack, and he's had to have a stent put in his, and he has one of those heart issues where there's a hole in his heart. And that runs in our family too. So heart issues are big in the Osmond family. So this is near and dear to the heart in our family. No pun intended. But I'm so glad you found a therapy that works for so many people. In fact, it has a 90% success rate. According to
the Mayo Clinic.
Mayo Clinic. That's a pretty good, reliable source. And Cleveland Clinic's been doing it for a long, long time as well. But the thing is that this therapy is kind of hush-hush, it's quiet. But I love that it's called EECP, which means Enhanced External Counterpulsation, meaning the outside of the body. See, because when you get a heart attack and they have to open you up and they cut you open and sew you shut, that's pretty intense to the body.
It's traumatic.
It's very traumatic, and there can be a lot of other issues caused by that. So the fact that we can avoid it or treat it from the outside in is pretty powerful. We want to watch a short little video here to teach our audience here what is EECP. Check this out.
During EECP therapy, the patient lies on a treatment table with large blood pressure-like cuffs wrapped around the patient's calves, thighs, and buttocks. The EECP treatment is timed to the patient's heartbeat. While the heart is at rest, the treatment cuffs inflate in sequence from the calves to the thighs to the buttocks. Just before the next heartbeat, all the cuffs deflate at the same time. The squeezing action of the cuffs increases blood flow to the blood vessels that supply the heart muscle, increasing the amount of oxygen-rich blood being delivered to the heart. When all the cuffs deflate at the same time, the amount of work the heart has to do to pump blood out to the body is lowered due to a decrease in the resistance to blood flow. For many patients, completing 35 one-hour treatments of EECP therapy may result in the recruitment and/or enlargement of small blood vessels, known as collaterals, that can increase the blood supply to the heart muscle, decreasing their chest pain, fatigue, and shortness of breath. There is also evidence that other major organs, such as the kidneys and the brain, receive additional blood supply.
Well, wow, this is an amazing breakthrough for the heart, that you're able to basically in between heartbeats massage all the way up from the calves to the thighs to the buttocks, and that just opens up
pushes up the blood to your heart. So it makes it easier for the heart to beat. It strengthens the heart. It gives more circulation to all areas of your body. One of the misunderstandings about heart disease is that people tend to think about it as, oh, the heart is failing. My sister said, I thought it was just the heart was failing. But with cardiovascular disease, it's the circulation of the vessels that are putting that oxygen in. Like, for instance, I have no heart disease. I have cardiovascular disease. And we're beginning to understand that if you have problems with your blood vessels and they're clogged or they're impaired in any way, that doesn't just impact your cardio. It also does your kidney arteries, it does your leg arteries, it does your cerebral. And so it leads to strokes, it leads to, neuropathy, and some of the other problems that we're all suffering from. So this is a way that you can actually treat the entire system and revitalize it.
What can this do for stroke victims?
I don't really know. I have not seen a lot of documentation on that, so I can't speak to that.
Because those run in our family as well, and so I'd be curious to find out more. We'll have to have you back on the show to talk about that.
I would think it would be the same thing, and we also have strokes. My dad had a stroke and was paralyzed for 10 years before he died. So it's just a matter of, are you going to get a stroke or are you going to get the heart disease? Because as you said, they're very closely tied together. If you have vascular disease, it could go to your stroke symptoms, it could go to your heart symptoms.
Wow.
So
and it's
either
even
one
benefiting
of
the liver, you said, and the kidneys, and
them.
the whole body.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Cleveland Clinic has a long list of saying that it can help with your anything to do with the brain, anything to do with the lungs, anything to do with the legs, any kind of
Everything's
organ.
affected by blood flow, including eyesight, and you name it. It's just
Right.
unbelievable. So this is pretty powerful. Now, how can one tell if they're having a heart attack? What are some of the symptoms? Because they're different sometimes between men and women. And what if you wanted to tell somebody, okay, this is what you want to look out for because you've experienced it, what should we tell people?
Well, it is very different for men and women. They say, just like my mom, it was more like indigestion. And sometimes it's just a feeling of tightness. Sometimes it's a feeling of, that you have pain radiating down your arm. That's a well-known one. But it can be just pressure, like something's pressing on your chest.
Yeah.
And so any of those symptoms are things that would be really good to have checked out.
Yeah.
Because half of all people die on their first heart attack.
Wow.
And they don't get, of those ones that are dying every 33 minutes, a lot of those are first-time people. And even of the ones that survive, there's a large percentage that die within 5 years.
Wow.
Who survive it because they still have that vascular problem.
Yeah.
Even though they might get a stent to open it up temporarily, you have all these other capillaries in your body,
Yeah.
the small ones. So they put a stent in your big arteries, or maybe even 5 of your big arteries.
Yeah.
But then you have hundreds of smaller capillaries that are feeding your heart.
Yeah.
That if they're not getting the oxygen, and if your large ones are impaired, there's a good chance your smaller ones are too.
That's right.
That's why you still have chest pains.
That's right. My Uncle Tom, they called him Dead Man Walking. He's still here, but he had a quadruple bypass. And so it runs in our family. So even today, in talking to one of my realtor friends, a young guy, he says, I'm having problems with my heart. I said, well, interestingly enough, tonight in the studio, we're going to be talking about heart disease. And so I took a picture of your pamphlet and I sent it to him. He's going to be talking to you real soon about EECP.
That'd be great.
I'm so excited to share it with my friends. That's why I'm excited to have you in the studio. And you've had a lot of success stories like this one right here. It says, when people come back from heart surgery, they feel as though they have one foot in the grave. I tell them that I've lived with heart disease for 27 years, have outlived the warranty, and feel great. Before EECP, I couldn't walk 2 blocks. I felt knocked out of all the time. It says, my legs felt like dead weights, and I couldn't catch my breath. From William G. How does that make you feel that you've been able to help somebody like this?
Well, that's the hope that we could, and there's a lot of proof that that's how people do respond to it.
That is unbelievable. Here's another one. I have grandchildren and a great-grandchild, and I'm happy that I'm still around. Ed B. said after EECP therapy, he was able to climb 30 stairs to his trading company every morning. He likes to keep active and walks for 5 miles every Sunday without taking nitroglycerin tablets. There's a lot of unnecessary things people are doing to just try and prevent health problems like heart disease. And to treat it is hard. This is taking 1 hour a day, 5 days a week for 7 weeks. I mean, to recover from a heart attack takes a lot longer than that, doesn't it?
It takes a lot longer. And I happened to have my open heart surgery during COVID. And so I was in isolation for a couple of weeks before they could get approval to even do it, because it was March of 2020, and they were grappling with, can we even do surgery during COVID?
Wow.
By the time they got around to doing it, it was like, when I came out of the hospital, it was sort of like I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. It's very emotional, and you're sitting there thinking, or trying not to think, and I know everyone else has things with knee replacements and so forth, but you're trying to think about, as you said, not think about them cutting you open and breaking your ribs.
Oh.
So if I had a choice between 35 hours of EECP, and when you think about it, I mean, you go into cardiac rehab for 3 hours a day for 3 or 4 months. You go into physical therapy when you're working on a shoulder for month after month. There's a lot of things we do. We go to the gym.
Yeah.
We de-stress. We do our yoga. We do the things that we need to do if we want to avoid those kinds of heart problems.
Absolutely. Look at this one. I'm walking without pain for the first time in 30 years. And I owe it all to EECP. Once again, that's Enhanced External Counter Pulsation, EECP, meaning on the outside of your body.
You got that.
Let's not do this intrusive, because it's very intrusive.
Yeah.
To cut you open, to break open your sternum and everything else. I mean, it's...
Or like my brother,
Yeah, like your
dying
brother.
from just having a stent placed.
Wow.
We tend to minimize the risk because you have all that small print or the late night TVs, and they say,
yeah.
there's, and they list 35 different symptoms, and at the end, and they say, and it could cause death.
Yeah.
And the same thing with stents and heart attack. It's in there.
Yeah.
It could cause stents, or excuse me, it could cause death. It could cause, one of my times that I had an angioplasty, it flipped off some hard calcification, and I had 2 small strokes.
Yeah.
And afterwards, my cardiologist said, I'm so sorry I did this to you.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what makes you think you did it to me? And he said, because I was drilling, trying to get it cleared out. And he said, these things just happen all the time. And so it was, to him, it was like, oh yeah, that's part of the consequence of it. Or it could be. And so we minimize that. We don't like to think about it.
Absolutely. This is eye-opening. And why have we not heard more about this?
Well, I wondered the same thing, because after my failed bypass, my cardiologist just told me, he said, I can't do anything else for you. And I was a little dumbfounded, wondering what comes next, how do you deal with that? And so he said, well, you really need to grow new arteries. And because of the fact that I was a little stressed about going back into the hospital again, I had delayed. He kept saying, we need to check that artery. And I kept delaying, and so by the time he did, he said, well, your heart, I mean, I have no right artery. It entirely calcified. He said, when we look at the x-rays, you don't even have one. So there's nothing to do a bypass. So the only arteries I have are on the left side. And those are starting to shoot out little kind of arteries and capillaries. And he said, that's the only thing keeping you alive. And that's true of a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've found out since that there are literally, some estimate, 600,000 people who have continuing chest pains, who can't have treatments.
Yeah.
They can't have more stents.
Yeah.
They can't have, other kinds of, maybe they're too old, or they're too frail, or, for some reason they just can't survive.
Yeah.
And they're not having those needs met. I was lucky in the fact that after I was told that, I went to a functional medicine doctor who was trained in Cleveland, and he did some tests, and then after finding out about lipoprotein small a, I flew to Michigan to see a preventive cardiologist. And his name is Joel Kahn. He's pretty well known, but anyway, he's the one who told me, you ought to go home and see if you can find out about EECP.
Oh, wow.
And of course, I'd never heard of it. I came home and I started doing research, and it literally took me 4 months to get a referral.
Wow.
There is 1 machine in Denver, 2 in all of Colorado.
Wow.
There used to be a lot more.
Yeah.
Around 2001, 2006, there was a real rush to move to EECP. It was being introduced by Vaso Medical, who was the distributor. They're affiliated in some context with GE, and they were manufacturing these machines and bringing them into the United States. And actually, the whole therapy was developed in the United States.
That's amazing.
And since then, it has been exported to China and India.
Yeah.
In India, they actually, one of the lead doctors, one of the lead cardiologists, I don't mean to ramble, but one of the lead cardiologists there said, every major medical center in India has an EECP program.
Wow.
And China just opened an EEC therapy college to treat people, tell people how to treat it. So China, of course, embraced this technology and started developing it and made some improvements. And Vaso Medical in the United States picked up on it and perfected it even more and offered it. But
are there any negative side effects?
Actually,
any drawbacks?
We were talking to the national clinical director who teaches, and he said he knows of no adverse, he said, I know of no adverse effects. It is safe, it's painless, it's effective, it's cost effective, it strengthens your heart, it has all of those benefits.
Oh yeah. Well, just like Linda S. right here, who says, I couldn't walk across the room without shortness of breath. My quality of life was horrid. After this treatment, it was like night and day. I feel so much better. What a testimonial. And of course this, you talked about effectiveness. About 90% of our EECP patients experience a significant improvement in their quality of life. We're talking the Mayo Clinic.
The Mayo Clinic.
Said that. Talk about a testimonial.
And I called the Cleveland Clinic and talked to the representative that they put me in touch with, and I said, you know, what is your experience with this? And she said, for the patients that we use it with, it is fabulously successful. And so it's not that it's not effective. It's, and you ask the question, why isn't it being used?
Yeah.
It kind of lost favor, and I think in part because it was going through cardiologists. There used to be one at the University of Utah. There was one at Utah Valley, and if I'm remembering correctly, there was one in St. George. Now there are no clinics here in Utah at all. Except for ours.
In Sandy, Utah.
Which is because we have family here, and I want so much to be able to help. And I have a brother-in-law who has Parkinson's, and there are studies that show it helps Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And so
he's going to start this week.
He is.
How exciting. So 1 hour a day, 5 days a week for 7 weeks.
That's nothing, is it? That's
what is your heart worth? It keeps us alive. You know what I'm saying? And I'm so excited that you're sharing this. You have personally been affected. Now you're helping your family members and people all over the world. It's obviously 90% successful according to Mayo Clinic, and now people can find out where to get in touch with you right here. What is the phone number if they want to call and find out more information?
358-330-0358.
Or they can visit your website, which is pvspulse.com. It's a great website. It's a great new technology. It's actually not new. It's been around for a long time. But people just haven't heard about it. And sometimes it's what we don't know that we don't know, and we think we know, which could cost us our lives. So,
and if I could add my testimonial, when I started this, I was just, suddenly it offered an opportunity for hope.
Yeah.
Because before I knew I had a degenerative disease that would continue to decline. And within the first weeks, I had more energy, my chest pains were gone, the swelling in my legs was gone, and it hasn't come back. And for a lot of people, it's effective for 3 to 5 years. Medicare pays for it. It's FDA approved. Insurances will pay for it if you have previous signs of heart disease.
Medicare, Medicaid, correct?
Not Medicaid.
Not Medicaid, Medicare.
Yes, Medicare, and most many insurance companies now will pay for it also.
So, if you're concerned about heart health, cardiovascular, strokes in your family, perhaps you have friends that are struggling with these issues, we've now found a non-intrusive, effective therapy called EECP, Enhanced External Counter Pulsation. Write it down. Give LeAnn a call here at 358-330-0358 or visit pvspulse.com. You'll be glad you did. Thanks for being on the show here, LeAnn.
Thank you.